player development has been a huge issue at Texas for the last several years. And we saw the player development when some young guys were coming in and able to step up and play, that their season, they've grown over this season, even without being on the field. The fact of the running back room, you had this team that, you lose Bijan and Roshan. You lose those two guys. And with Bijan gone, you think, how are you possibly going to replace a player that electric? And how can you replace the production that this team was able to get, especially when you look at how many times those guys were able to get past the first guy and get a hit behind the line of scrimmage and still get ahead and get big plays. And all of a sudden, Jonathan Brooks comes out, and Jonathan Brooks is one of the best running backs in the country. And you say, all right, the running back room is safe because we've got another guy. And when you watch this game, and I get it's Texas Tech, they don't have the best run defense in the league. These guys are not going to be able to do this week in and week out. However, to see that you have a lot of options at the running back position now, to see that, C.J. Baxter, he doesn't get a ton of carries, doesn't get a ton of yards, gets 5 yards a carry, though. So that's a pretty good average if you're saying 5 yards a carry. Jaden Blue, he just said in that clip, 121 yards rushing in the game. Of course, a big 60-plus yard run for Jaden Blue. Savion Red had 72 yards. Wisner had 60 yards. You saw guys, and yeah, it's the end of the game. These are garbage, but they're still getting the ball and moving it upfield. They're still being able to run the ball. That's a great sign that Tashard Choice has this running back room operating at a high level. And you want to be able to see the running back room. You want to see this in all your positions, but when you start to see it, that's one of your examples that you can take out of this game and say that running back room, everyone is growing. And Bijan and Roshan, I think, set the trend last year of kind of pushing forward and teaching and making it a running back room that you could be proud of. When we talk about the culture of it and everything else, I think those two guys kind of set the mold. And now we're seeing Jonathan Brooks take that to the next level. And then you have a young guy in C.J. Baxter who's having a great season when he can stay out on the field, and he's doing really well. And to then add in Jaden Blue, he finally gets his playing time, and he's able to come out there and do what he does. Savion Red is moving over to that position, and what he's able to do. To see a young guy like Wisner, not to mention a Keelan Robinson, who has a touchdown, which was a reception, but then they said it was a backwards pass, so it became a running touchdown in a big play early on to get Texas pushing up that score, and a kick return. I mean, that's just a really good running back room when you can say that there's two NFL running backs. Jonathan Brooks will be one when he gets healthy and goes into the NFL, and you're still able to put up that kind of run game. That means a lot to the offensive line and their play, and that means a lot for the running back room. Sark spoke about the running back room growth, that there was a lot of worries, and I was definitely leading, I was pounding on my chest asking who was going to be the running back on this team, because we saw in the Washington game, in the bowl game against Washington, that this running back room couldn't get going against Washington, and you had a lot of worries, and everybody, I think, had a lot of worries that this running back, there could be a problem, and it just has not been that case this year. Here's Sark talking about the running back room growth.
Yeah, we anytime you lose two NFL players at one position in the same year, and the experience that Bijan and Roshan had, quite frankly, it had been almost 3 full years of those guys really carrying the load, and definitely the 2 years since that I was here with them, where they really carried the load, and Jonathan kind of got his run sparingly in there. There's going to be some question marks, and because you don't really know until there's live bullets. And it's been a unique year at that position for us, in that, CJ started the year. Jonathan comes in when CJ gets injured and has a fantastic season, and arguably was going to go down as one of the great seasons ever here. And unfortunately he gets injured. CJ gets healthy enough. He comes back, and has a fantastic game, at Iowa State. And last week it was Jaden Blue, and then here comes Savion Red, and here's Trey Wisner, and Keelan Robinson along the way has 2 touchdowns. And so I think it just points to we try to recruit players that fit us systematically. I think there's a culture in that room that Coach Choice and Bijan and Roshan kind of have started, that all those other guys have bought into. That I think there's a real work ethic that those guys have, and belief that when their number's called, they can play at a high level. I think there's a physical brand of football that those guys play with. When they watch them run, I mean, you go all the way to Trey Wisner at the end of that game, the way he was running that ball was not much different than Savion Red or Jaden Blue or Ced Baxter or Jonathan Brooks. I mean, I think there's a mentality in which those guys run the ball. And so, again, it's a credit to all parties involved of the development of all the players in that room. And we got a ton of confidence in those guys. And so, we're in good shape today. I think our future is very bright moving forward in that room. And but as everybody knows here, that room's really important to me because of, we're at our best as a team when we can run the ball well. We can control the game. We can go fast. We can slow it down. We can help the defense. We can help the play action pass and the quarterback. We force people to deploy people to stop the run. That helps the passing game. So all in all, that is a huge component to what we do. And knowing that we've got multiple guys in that room that we can lean on is big for us.
So there's some good stuff about the offense and how this offense puts up 57 points, which I think you were thinking maybe you could get to 40 in this game. 40 would have been a good number, and they get to 57 is a number I didn't think they were going to get to. Of course, I don't know how many of us thought this was going to definitely be this game because they haven't blown anybody out. They haven't blown anybody out since 49-0. So they say, okay, well, let's go, take care of business at the end of the season against a team that wants to be a rival, against a team that tries to put up a good fight against you. The defense is now on the other side, holding them to 7 points. And we can say special teams is a huge part of this, positioning and getting down on guys coming, bringing the ball back out and getting stops and not allowing field position to be lost in the special teams game for Bert Auburn, for the field goals and setting records. And just, now that Sark maybe got over a little bit of that having to go for it on fourth down, and he sees how much better the momentum and the flow of the game is going when you don't allow fourth down stops, to just kick those field goals, go play some defense and get the ball back and go again. And you see that, you can say field goals don't beat touchdowns, but at the end of the day, if you're not allowing any points, field goals plus touchdowns beats the crap out of everybody. So we saw what Texas was able to do on the offensive end and special teams, and on the defense to hold a team to 7 points. And we know that they've struggled. We knew that they were going to try and run the ball against Texas with Taj Brooks, who's been a really good player for Texas Tech. But he was able to get a decent game, but was never able to break any big ones, wasn't able to go. The bend but don't break defense of Texas transformed a bit into a barely bend, not very malleable defense. But one of the things they were able to do was get back, make a play, and get back on an offense that wanted to hurry up. And something that really caused Texas problems early in this year was hurry up offenses and when teams were trying to go fast on them, Texas wasn't able to get back. They seem to have fixed that problem. They seem to have worked on that problem some. Here's Sark talking about the defense and the defense's ability to start playing faster, not just playing with speed, but being able to play faster.
Yeah, no, I think there's a combination of things in that. I think you have the ability to play fast when you know what to do, right? I think anytime you have doubt or you're wondering or you're uncertain, your tendencies to play slower, your reaction time is a little bit slower because you want to make sure, am I right? And when you're playing that way, you're always going to be a step behind. So I think I credit the coaches of preparing our players. I think 2, you play fast when you're all on the same accord, right? When there is that great communication between your linebacker, your D-line, your safety, your nickel, and everybody's kind of working in unison. And so you can trust that guy next to you that he's going to do his job, so you can go cut it loose to go make your play. And then the third piece to it is, I think, as a coach, you just try to manage your practice habits as the season goes on. And you're always as fresh as you can be at the start of a season, and fast and physical. But as the season goes on, there's the wear and tear of it. And so, I've always been one to kind of trust my gut on different things. And so one thing that was unique last week, we didn't put pads on one time going into that game against Texas Tech. We literally just wore helmets or walked through, and we probably played as fast and as physical of a game as we've had all year from a defensive perspective and at the line of scrimmage on offense. But that's because the players earned my trust, right? And I think they knew how to practice without pads on. They knew how to walk through and still be mentally focused. And then that would allow them to play as fast as they could come Friday night on a short week. And so every week is a little bit different for us on not necessarily the structure of practice, but what we wear for that day. And I felt like that's what was needed for us to be at our best that Friday night, and it paid dividends for us.
And that's what you want to see from a coaching staff, too, is to have a coaching staff that values health at points and realizes that this Texas Tech team is not going to be as physical as some other teams you may have played. So you say, all right, well, we need to be able to get up there and get to the line. We need our guys to be healthy. We're pretty banged up. We keep getting hurt. I'll play the injury update, too, just a second. We need to play at that level. And so to pull off pads and trust him and give them a little bit more pep in their step when it gets to be game day, that they can go out there and they're ready to go. They feel good and their body's doing that. You want to see that. Everything seems to be putting together into a way that Texas is heading in the right direction. They're still not where they need to be, but they're heading in that right direction. The Texas Tech game showed you so many different aspects of that that you wanted to see. You can't get too cocky, of course. We all know that. But you can love it. And I think a huge part of this defensive identity has come from the two men starting in the middle on the line. And as they've continued to dominate, to allow the team to follow their lead of playing just at another level of football. And if you look at what T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy are doing and just really playing at a high level each and every single game, and even when some other guys are letting down, those guys are still playing at a high level. And what they're able to do, and this game especially, just shut things down and push through that offensive line, and I think they've kind of earned their spot as the big dogs on campus in the defensive locker room and the leaders of this defensive locker room now because of what they're doing. And, we've seen in the last couple of weeks, there's been some guys that talk trash. And we saw at Iowa State, there was the O-lineman who said that they think their S doesn't stink. And what do they do? They go show everybody in the locker room. And apparently that it was floating around the Brett Yormark comments and Joey McGuire comments and all of that. And so they said, all right, let's go show that around. I think that they're able to lightheartedly but seriously tell these guys, man, people don't think we can go out there and do what we can do. We know what we can do because we see it in practice and we see what we can do on game day, and we're letting it slip. Me and Byron Murphy aren't, and T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy aren't. Those guys are playing at another level, and I think their leadership so far this season and what it's turned into as they continue to prove themselves throughout this season, it is changing this defense and getting everybody to play just a little step faster. So to see that now those two guys are going up, I like the question Sark was asked today is what I'm going to. Sark was asked, how do you kind of differentiate into awards season for college football when you have a T'Vondre Sweat and a Byron Murphy who are both on the D-line? How do you kind of get both of them awards, and who takes the lead in this? I just like Sark's answer about this one.
No, I think that's a fair question. They're both have had fantastic seasons. I believe they're the best tandem in the country from what I can watch and the teams we played against. And I mean, they work so well with one another. They're different styles of players. Sweat is got such athleticism for a big man and can impact the game in a variety of ways. He can rush the passer, he can defend the run and make critical plays on a lot of these fourth down stops and third down stops. He gets his hands on the ball when he isn't able to get into the backfield, and he has got a lot of tips and batted balls. where Murphy is such a penetrator, and he's such a bulldog. His effort is through the roof. And so I think they play really well off of one another. That quite frankly, I'm hopeful one of them is the Big 12 Defensive Player in the Year, and the other one is the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year. And I think they're more than deserving of that. They have impacted our team in a way that, when you think about, we lead the nation on third down defense. We lead the nation in red zone defense. And those are two, really cool numbers to have when you talk about, defensive football, that nobody's better than us on third down. Nobody's better than us at stopping people in the red area. And sometimes total defense can get a little skewed because yards are just yards. But are you stopping people on third down and getting them off the field? Are you stopping people from scoring touchdowns when they're in the red area? Those are big numbers. So I'm fired up for our defense. But I think a lot of that starts and ends with what we do up front on the interior defensive line, and that's Sweat and Murphy. So just fired up for those guys for the year that they've had so far.
Yeah, I think every Texas fan is fired up for the year those guys have had.